on your first animation, and especially Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Oh, okay. Between my first animation and Roger Rabbit, there's quite a few years span. I really started toying away with animation when I was like 14 years old, 17 years old, and those were, of course, very clumsy at times with an 8mm movie camera at home. So quite a few years later, in 1987, I got involved with Who Framed Roger Rabbit, just like I mentioned during the lecture, the conference, and it was an amazing experience because it was an international crew. We were 4 French animators on the project, and I got to animate personally Roger and Jessica, the main characters, thanks to Richard Williams.
Jacques Muller, could you give us what are your life lessons learned from this experience?
Life lessons?
Yes, of being an animator. How can one become an animator, and those who pursue in animation? What does it take to be?
Well, I would have said before the beginning of 3D animation that you had to have draftsmanship. You had to know how to draw the human body, the animals, etc., and be a master in that respect. It's less true today because people who don't draw can still do superb animation in 3D. But the great lesson I learned on Roger Rabbit especially is that it's not just the hand, it's also the eye. Your perception has to be sharp. You need to know those things in order to use the tools of today to make superb animation.
What sort of advice can you give for people who wants to pursue the craft of animation and expand their career? What does it take? Does it take a lot of relationships?
Well, I would say connections are definitely a factor, but if your demo reel is really promising, you should really focus on character animation, personality. As an animator, that's what I would recommend. Of course, you can be animating pure action or props or things of that nature, which are more technical, but if you can aim toward character animation and really give the illusion of life, then you're on your way.
What was the secret of your success?
Well, what is success? Is it mingling with powerful people in Hollywood? I don't know what is success. In any case, I think the success is really doing what you love most doing. In my case, is doing animation, and I'm creating some projects right now, working on them. But of course, there's a time factor, there's a finance factor, but you must have the drive, you must have the passion. That's what I would say.
One last question, Mr. Boulot. What will be your advice to the young people and the future generations that could learn from you? Life lessons.
Life lessons is stay humble and never try to compare yourself with great painters or great musicians or great animators. There's no point trying to compare yourself because sometimes you feel powerless, you feel like, gee, I will never be able to reach that level. Forget about that. Try to learn the lessons through their art, and then there's an incredible amount of stuff to learn, of course, but just compare everything in relation to yourself, not to others, and then you will progress.
And one very last example. Could you give us just one last example? How do you discover that lesson?
I discovered that lesson by not being always original in my approach, being too formal. It's a bit like in social life. Sometimes you're a little too formal. You need to relax. You need to give it a try. Okay, you have to allow yourself to make mistakes, basically. And there's an awful lot of stuff that you learn through mistakes. So don't be shy. Just go for it and learn from your mistakes. And then you will eventually achieve a level where people will look at your stuff in amazement.
Was there a mentor or artist that you admire most that influenced you?
At first it was Walt Disney, of course, but Walt Disney was not so much of an artist, he was more like a failed artist. That's why he surrounded himself with great people. But I would say Mill Cole, the Disney animator from the past, was a fantastic animator. And then I would say, of course, artists of today like Sylvain Chomet, for instance, is one example. I love what Paul Grimaud came up with, but I also love what Miyazaki does. So, there's quite a few.
What's next for you now in the future?
Well, at present I'm teaching at Nanyang Polytechnic, and I was given the opportunity to do a short film with my students, more in a Disney way, but it's traditional 2D mixed with three-dimensional backgrounds. It's a short film which should be completed soon, and then I have a whole array of other projects, from short films to medium featurettes to even feature films. So, I mean, the sky is the limit.